Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is a somewhat impromptu video here about the John Deere JS35, and this is John Deere's commercial grade walk-behind mower. This is a self-propelled bagger with the MowMentum drive system. That means that the faster you walk as you're pressing the drive handle, the faster the mower walks or drives. So the system is similar to Toro, whereas Toro's handle, on Toro, the black handle slides in and out. On the John Deere, it flexes or hinges here and here. So you have a lever here. So when you're walking with this, you're pushing against this. The faster you push against it, the faster it drives. So that is the John Deere MowMentum system. You can actually lock the handle in place as well. This is your lock in place. So this is the John Deere MowMentum system, and like I said, this is the JS35 model. This is one of John Deere's best commercial grade. So what makes it good is it's a bagger, it's a mulcher, it's a side discharge. It has a single lever for adjusting the deck height, and then there's linkage that connects the rear axle to the front. On the other side, there's a rod that connects the front axle to the rear, and then that way the height of all four wheels gets adjusted from a single lever. So this rod here connects the rear axle to the front, so it's very easy to adjust the deck height from a single point. Now this does have commercial wheels, these have ball bearings. This is a commercial grade engine, it's got electric start, and so this is, as far as walk-behinds go, this would be basically a top-of-the-line machine, and it's pretty expensive. I would assume this is like between $500 or $800 new. Now, the reason I did the video today is because this came in and it was supposed to just be a standard tune-up, you know, where you go through the car, maybe it doesn't run right because of the carb stuff, it needs a new spark plug, maybe an air cleaner, and an oil change. But it turned out to be a lot more wrong with it than just basic maintenance. And so today's video, I'm going to just highlight a bit about when you're troubleshooting stuff like this, what would be some tips and perhaps some techniques that you could employ that would save you a ton of time in diagnosing something like this. So this mower, when it came in, it would run. This is, like I said, this is one of the best engines that are on mowers like this right now. These are pretty solid. This is the flathead Briggs stuff. This isn't even overhead valve yet. This is somewhere in the mid-2000s, maybe 2008-ish, 2007-ish, where they had these engines. These were Briggs' commercial offering. And so it came in. It would run, but it would make a missing sound, like a type of sound. So it clearly, even though it had compression, it started well, there's clearly something amiss. So my initial thought was, it's the valve. Well, it turned out that the intake valve had fallen out. The intake valve had fallen out. The seat for the intake valve had fallen out of the head. There was a bunch of grass built up behind, in the fins behind the shroud, in this area in here, right behind the muffler where the automatic choke is. So this is automatic choke. It has literally no controls except for the key to start it and the drive system. So it's always running at full throttle. There's an automatic choke mechanism behind the muffler that's operating on the heat from coming off the muffler. So it's one of the most advanced engines that's on the market. So they had, I guess they let the grass build up back here to the point where it discolored the choke mechanism, which is a bimetal contraption that when it's cold, it's engaging the choke. And then as it heats up from the muffler, it turns the choke off. Well, that was discolored. So how I proved that the choke was defective was I reached in here with a screwdriver and had somebody else start it with the key. And when I choked it manually with a screwdriver by reaching in here, it would start. So I knew the automatic choke was bad. So when I took it apart, I see a sign there. It was all heated up. The whole area must have been heated up from the grass clippings. So the automatic choke, I replaced that, and then the choke worked. Well, so now you got the choke working. It's starting like it's supposed to. Obviously, you have the main three components that it needs to run, which is the first thing is your preliminary stuff that you do and stuff like this that doesn't run is you may check for spark, you check for fuel, and you check for compression. Well, this runs, it just doesn't run right. Kind of makes a sound. And so the fact that it's running like that, but it's got that condition, leaves you to believe that it's something with an internal part of the engine. So I thought, well, valves. So I took the head off, and the valve seat is completely fallen out of the head. And I guess it was still in the space, where the valve was pushing it shut. So it was somewhat running. So it's still sealing enough to make it run. So I did what you normally do when you repair those, where you can peen around them. I also used some Loctite to glue it in. And the valve, I ground lapped the valve with lapping compound in one of those suction sticks. And it didn't seat. It still made the sound. And so I got one of the compression leak down testers. I'll show you that in a minute here. I'll show you a leak down tester. So then I got myself the leak down tester, and then I tested it, and I noticed that when I do the leak down test on it, it's blowing out the intake. No matter where you turn, it in the combustion cycles, it's a 4-stroke, so you're turning it through all the different. So you're turning it so that both valves are closed, and it's still leaking out the carburetor side. So the carburetor, is connected to the intake valve. So I knew that there's something goofy with the intake valve, even though I had repaired it. It was still leaking out the intake valve. Now I'm like, oh boy. As I tried multiple things, I got a different valve for the intake, changed the valve, I ground it, I set it, still wouldn't. So that means only one thing. That is the seat that I fixed into the head again was so just ever so slightly off kilter to where the valve would not seat properly against it. Or it got pounded when it was that hot, when it was overheating. Maybe that seat got distorted, warped. Well, at that point, now what? This was only supposed to be a simple tune-up. It wasn't supposed to go this extensive. Well, as you know, that these series engines don't get made anymore. So I had to get a used engine block, and moved all the parts from it over to a new engine block. I honed it, put new rings in it, and boom, it's fixed. It runs like a top, as I'll show you here at the end of the video. So the tip I want to share is that if you're doing diagnostics like this, and you've done the three main things is where you have ignition, you have fuel being delivered, you have compression. In this case, it's running and it's starting, but there's something clearly wrong internally with the engine, like it's blowing out the intake through the carburetor. So I guess the idea is that I think you should start with a leak down checker. Get yourself a leak down tester and test for leaks, and you would save yourself a ton of time and a ton of money working on something like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll show you the leak down tester, and I'll put a link in the description below. And if you want to check it out on Amazon and perhaps get one. This is the leak down tester I got, and that's what I used. And so what these consist of, and most of them are pretty much all the same, is you have a quick coupler here that's like air hose quick coupler that this hose back here attaches to this one. So you screw this into the spark plug hole of the engine, and then this quick coupler part here couples into this hose. And that's how you're pushing air into the spark plug hole of the engine. You're pushing air. So this is your regulator. You set this to 30 or 40 pounds on this gauge. So you can regulate the pressure that's going through it from your air hose. So you're hooking up your air hose here, and then set this regulator to where you only get 30 or 40 pounds in here. You don't want to use too much pressure. And then this measures your amount of leakage going through your cylinder. So I had right in here between moderate and I had in the moderate, somewhere in the moderate range. I forget which side of it. This would be good. This would be low leakage. This would be moderate, and this would be bad. So with 30 psi, I had some significant leakage. And the fact that it's going out the intake, you can clearly feel it coming out the carburetor. So swap the head, swap the engine block. So I'll put a link in the description below, and you can check this out on Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive, but they're a must-have if you want to diagnose something like that without ripping your hair out. It makes it way simpler. So that's what we did to this guy, and I'll show you here in a second how it fires up. It runs like a top. It is electric start. There's a battery in here. So it's pretty sweet. So you basically make sure that you're depressing your bale. I'm going to set this lever here so that the drive system doesn't want to. I'm going to lock the drive handle. There we go. There we go. So I locked the drive handle so it's easier to depress this with two hands here as I'm filming it. Maybe I should grab my. It wants to be. That's how easy it is to drive. It's got ball bearings in the wheels and it just wants to roll. Just wants to roll. I'm going to use my Velcro strap here and hold this down. That way I don't have to tie up both my hands. Just holding the bale down. It's not being very user friendly, is it? Maybe I go just across it like that. There we go. Okay, so I got something holding the bale handle down so that we can see if it starts and fires up for us. Let's see if I can refocus my camera. There we go. Got it refocused here. Let's go ahead and turn the key, see if she fires up. So it fires right up. It's running smooth. We're not getting the missing action that we had originally. And so it's got new rings and new gaskets all the way around and new seals. So I think we did it. I think we got it officially fixed. And so yeah, the leak down tester does wonders in a case like this if you want to figure out, pinpoint the problem here in just a few minutes. And get on your way to fixing it, if it's worth fixing. Sometimes you gotta evaluate these carefully, like, is it really worth fixing if you're gonna put in this much work? Well, I didn't intend to get into it this deep, but you know, sometimes you chalk them up as a learning experience. So I'll put a link in the description below for the leak down tester, and I do say that it is literally a must that you get a leak down tester if you're going to work on stuff like this, and it'll just make your job so much easier. Okay, that's me checking out. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.